Healthcare costs have been front and center for consumers and the presidential candidates. I'm joined now by Susan DeVore, CEO of the healthcare company Premier for More. It's so nice to see you again in New York.
Nice to see you, Rhonda.
And never a dull moment in terms of your industry and what to talk about. So I want to jump right in with the Affordable Care Act, because we have seen increasingly insurance companies pulling out of the state-run exchanges. Congress always has Obamacare at top of mind. What's the prognosis for Obamacare should Donald Trump get elected?
So, Rhonda, I think if Donald Trump gets elected, there will be a period of uncertainty, but only if Republicans maintain control of Congress. It's really the sweep, the Republican sweep, that I think will cause uncertainty for a period of time. Bottom line is the cost challenge, the quality, safety, outcomes, patient experience challenge exists in any case. So a lot of the Affordable Care Act ideas were really bipartisan, or some of them even Republican in their initiation. So I think the basic framework will continue. It may have a different name, it may look a little bit different, but it needs to solve the same problems.
Will it be tweaked if Hillary Clinton is elected?
You know, if Hillary Clinton's elected and if there's a Democratic sweep, I think it will move faster. I think she will attempt to get some additional things in place for drug pricing transparency. She may try to expand the Medicare program for people 55 and over. And so I think if there's a Democratic sweep, it could accelerate the transformation.
You mentioned drug pricing. The other big topic as of late was, of course, what happened with Mylan and the EpiPens, and now there'll be a congressional hearing on that in just a couple of days. What's your perspective on that story? We heard from Mylan's CEO and talked about a broken system. Is that the problem still, that the system is broken?
You know, at Premier, we spend a lot of our time trying to create competitive friction between suppliers to drive the cost of supplies and pharma down. And I think that competitive market works if you have enough competitors in the space. So I don't think it's about any one product or any one company. The FDA needs to speed up their process of approval. Maybe patent life is a little bit too long. You need at least 2 to 3 competitors in the space to create the friction to drive the price down.
Tell me more about how you try to create that friction. You're having some success. We should point out in your last year, revenue up about 15%, and your fiscal year you reported recently. So it's obviously working what you're doing, but perhaps explain to the viewers what that is and why we need more of it.
Yeah, so think of Premier as virtually 3,750 hospitals and health systems and 130,000 other providers of care acting together, buying their supplies, their drugs, their medical devices together, and working together on improving their quality, safety, and outcomes. So Inova Health System in Northern Virginia is one of our members. We saved them $250 million. Over a couple of year period of time. 50 million of that was in supply chain, meaning lowering the price, but also working on the appropriate use of products so that they're not overused or misused.
And then are we seeing those savings passed on to the consumer, the patient, the healthcare patient who is going in for whatever procedure or medicine?
Yeah, so I think that the providers and patients need to be in this together, and at Premier we work hard to drive the overall costs down, and then the healthcare systems try to pass that along to insurance companies and or patients. There's been a real movement in the industry for patients to be a lot more involved in their care decisions in the form of health savings accounts and those kinds of things, and so I do think that the transparency of the cost and the involvement of the patient in it is ultimately going to help lower the cost.
What is a more appropriate annual increase for healthcare costs, would you say? We know, it's a problem with a lot of industries. Some are seeing deflation, healthcare is not, but what's a more appropriate level of increase, do you think?
You know, at Premier, our goal is to try to get healthcare costs so they're growing at a rate more consistent with the growth of the GDP. Right now, it's growing at 1 to 2% more than the GDP. That is probably not sustainable. So everything we do at Premier is around how do we make the care more effective for patients, clinically effective, and also lower that overall spending increase.
Well, Susan, it's always good to hear what's going on with your company and your thoughts on the industry overall. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
I'm Rhonda Schaffler for The Street.